My name is Marcus Chen, and I own the Grandview Plaza Hotel in downtown Seattle. What I'm about to tell you sounds like something out of a movie, but every word of it happened. The night my family showed up at my hotel for a reunion I wasn't invited to, they had no idea I was standing behind the front desk. They had no idea whose credit card was about to get destroyed. And they definitely had no idea that the quiet, forgettable son they'd written off years ago was the one who held all the power. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. It started on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. The kind of day where the air smells like rain but the sky can't quite commit. I was in my office on the 4th floor, reviewing quarterly reports with my assistant manager, David, when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from our booking system. Nothing unusual about that. We process dozens of reservations daily. But this one made me freeze mid-sentence. Party name, Chen Family Reunion. Guest count, 42. Duration, 3 days. Estimated cost, $47,000. David noticed my expression change. "Everything okay, boss?" I didn't answer right away. My eyes scanned the details. Premium ballroom rental. Full catering package. Open bar for 3 nights. Private chef for Saturday dinner. Deluxe suite block. Every upgrade we offered, they'd selected. And there at the bottom, the name that made my chest tighten, primary contact, Miranda Chen. My sister. I hadn't spoken to Miranda in 4 years. Not since she'd stood in my tiny studio apartment and told me I was wasting everyone's time trying to make something of myself. "You're 35 years old, Marcus. When are you going to accept that you're not special?" Those were her exact words. I remember because I wrote them down that night, not out of anger, but because I wanted to remember the moment I decided to stop trying to earn their approval. "Boss?" David's voice pulled me back. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I closed my laptop slowly. "How far out is this reservation?" He leaned over to check his screen. 2 weeks. October 14th through 16th. Why? I stood up and walked to the window. From my office, I could see the entire downtown corridor. Pike Place Market to the left, the Sound beyond it, and everywhere between, the city I'd rebuilt my life in. The city where nobody knew I used to be the family disappointment. Where nobody cared that I'd dropped out of law school or that I'd worked 3 jobs to buy my first property. Here, I was just Marcus Chen, the guy who turned a failing motor lodge into one of the most sought-after boutique hotels in the Pacific Northwest. "Cancel my meetings for the next 2 weeks," I told David. "All of them?" "All of them." He knew better than to ask questions. That's what I appreciated about David. He understood that some battles you fight alone, in silence, until the moment demands otherwise. That night, I sat in my apartment above the hotel. It's not a penthouse, nothing flashy. Just a 2-bedroom space with good light and a view of the water. I like it because it's mine. No mortgage, no cosigners, no one to answer to. On my kitchen counter sat a single photograph in a wooden frame. It's the only picture of my family I kept. We're standing outside my grandmother's house in Portland. I'm 12, gap-toothed and scrawny, wearing a shirt 2 sizes too big. Miranda's next to me, already poised and perfect even at 16. My brother Ethan stands on the other side, arms slung over Dad's shoulder like they're best friends. Mom's in the center, smiling that smile she reserved for cameras. And there, just barely visible in the background, is my grandmother. She's not looking at the camera. She's looking at me. Grandma May died when I was 19. She left me $12,000 in a savings account nobody else knew about. The note attached said, "For the one who listens." I didn't understand it then. I thought maybe she meant I was quiet, obedient. It took me years to realize she meant I was the only one who actually heard her when she spoke. The only one who sat with her on Sunday afternoons while she told stories about immigrating from Taiwan, about building a life from nothing, about how family isn't always blood. That $12,000 became the down payment on a duplex in a rough neighborhood. I lived in one unit, rented the other. 2 years later, I sold it for twice what I paid. Bought a triplex. Then a small apartment building. Then this hotel, which everyone said was a money pit. They were right. It was. Until it wasn't. I picked up my phone and opened the family group chat. I hadn't been removed, just ignored. The last message I'd sent was 3 Christmases ago, hope everyone's doing well. No response. But the chat itself was active. I scrolled through months of messages I'd never read. Miranda, Mom's birthday dinner at Canlis. Everyone confirmed? Ethan, wouldn't miss it. Bringing the kids. Dad, reserve the private room. Miranda, you're handling the gift? Miranda, already ordered. She'll love it. Mom, you're all too good to me. I kept scrolling. There were messages about Ethan's promotion. His kids' school events. Miranda's husband's new Tesla. Dad's golf tournament. Hundreds of messages. Not one mentioned me. It was like I'd been photoshopped out of a family portrait. Then I found it. The reunion planning thread. It started 6 months ago. Miranda, who's in for a big family reunion this fall? Thinking we could do it right. Rent a venue, make it a real event. Ethan, I'm in. The kids keep asking when we're all getting together. Mom, what a wonderful idea. We haven't done anything like this since your father's 60th. Dad, count us in. What are we thinking, budget-wise? Miranda, let's not cheap out. We're all doing well. Let's celebrate that. Ethan, agreed. Go big or go home. The thread went on for pages. Venue options. Date selections. Menu debates. Someone suggested inviting extended family. Cousins I hadn't seen since childhood. Aunts and uncles who used to ask me when I'd get a real job. And nowhere, in 237 messages, was my name mentioned. Not once. Not even to say I wouldn't be invited. I wasn't excluded out of malice. I was excluded out of indifference. That realization hit me harder than any insult could have. They didn't hate me. They simply forgot I existed. I set the phone down and walked to my window. Below, the hotel glowed softly. Every light, every fixture, every carefully chosen piece of art on the walls represented a decision I'd made. A risk I'd taken. When I bought this place 5 years ago, it was called the Aurora Motor Inn. 40 rooms, half of them unusable. Carpets that smelled like cigarettes in defeat. The previous owner practically begged me to take it off his hands. Everyone told me I was insane. The location was good, sure, but the building was a disaster. It needed everything. New electrical, new plumbing, new everything. The loan officer actually asked me if I was going through some kind of crisis. I told him no. I was going through awakening. I spent 2 years living in a construction zone. I learned to tile bathrooms from YouTube videos. I negotiated with contractors in broken Mandarin because it saved me 15%. I served breakfast to guests while wearing paint-splattered jeans because I couldn't afford to hire help yet. And slowly, room by room, the place transformed. I didn't rename it something trendy or clever. I called it the Grandview Plaza Hotel because that's what my grandmother would have wanted. Simple. Honest. A place where people felt welcome. Now we had a 5-star rating. We hosted tech company events. Wedding receptions. Film crews doing location shoots. Last month, a travel magazine called us one of Seattle's hidden gems. The article mentioned the owner's attention to detail, his personal touch. They interviewed me, asked about my inspiration. I told them about my grandmother. I didn't mention that my own family hadn't stayed here once. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I put on a staff uniform. Just a simple black polo with the hotel logo, khakis, comfortable shoes. David found me behind the front desk at 6:30. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Training," I said. "You own the place. You don't need training." I smiled. "Everyone needs training. Besides, I want to make sure we're ready for the Chen reunion. It's a big booking." He studied my face, trying to read what I wasn't saying. "You know these people?" "I used to." Over the next 2 weeks, I inserted myself into every aspect of the reunion planning. Not as the owner, but as a staff member. I took the calls from Miranda's assistant, a woman named Stephanie who had no idea who I was. I confirmed menu selections. I walked through the ballroom setup 3 times, making notes on lighting and table arrangements. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I personally reviewed the wine list they'd requested, upgrading 2 bottles to better vintages at no extra charge. Not because I was being generous, but because I wanted everything to be perfect. Perfect enough that they couldn't complain. Perfect enough that when the bill came, there would be no room for dispute. One afternoon, Miranda called directly. I almost didn't answer. David reached for the phone, but I held up my hand. "Grandview Plaza Hotel, this is Marcus speaking. How can I help you?" There was a pause. For a second, I thought she recognized my voice. But then she continued, tone brisk and businesslike. "Hi, yes, I'm calling about the Chen Family Reunion. I wanted to confirm that we have the ballroom from Friday evening through Sunday checkout." "That's correct, Ms. Chen. Everything's confirmed." "In the suite block?" "My parents are in their 70s. They need to be on a lower floor, close to the elevator. We have them in a premium suite on the 2nd floor, just past the elevator bank. Direct access, no long walks." "Perfect. And one more thing." Her voice dropped slightly, became almost confidential. "This is a really important weekend for our family. My father's turning 75, and we want everything to be flawless. Can you personally guarantee that?" I gripped the phone tighter. "Absolutely, Ms. Chen. I'll be here the entire weekend. If anything comes up, anything at all, you can reach me directly." "Thank you. I appreciate that." She hung up without saying goodbye. David, who'd been listening nearby, shook his head. "You're playing with fire, boss." "Maybe. But at least I'll be warm." The Thursday before the reunion, I received an email from Stephanie. It contained the final head count, the schedule of events, and one additional note: Mr. and Mrs. Chen have requested that their children be seated at the head table for Saturday's dinner. Please ensure place cards are set accordingly. I read the list of names. Dad, Richard Chen. Mom, Patricia Chen. Daughter, Miranda Chen Williams. Son, Ethan Chen. Son-in-law, David Williams. Daughter-in-law, Grace Chen. Grandchildren, for names I barely recognized. I wasn't on the list. Not even as a footnote. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the last time I'd seen my father. It was 6 years ago, before I bought the hotel. I'd driven down to Portland to tell him about the opportunity, to share my excitement. I thought maybe, finally, he'd see that I was building something real. We met at a diner near his office. He ordered coffee, black, and listened with his arms crossed while I explained my plan. I showed him the property photos, the financial projections, the timeline. I'd spent weeks putting together a presentation, hoping he'd be impressed. When I finished, he set down his coffee cup and looked at me with something close to pity. "Marcus," he said quietly, "when are you going to stop chasing fantasies?" "It's not a fantasy, Dad. The numbers are solid. You dropped out of law school for real estate." "I didn't drop out. I chose a different path. You were 2 semesters from graduating. Do you know how that made us look? This isn't about how it made you look. Everything is about how things look, Marcus. That's what you've never understood. Your sister is a senior partner at her firm. Your brother runs a successful medical practice. And you? You flip houses. I build communities, I said, voice steady despite the anger rising in my chest. I create spaces where people feel safe and welcome. He signaled for the check. I have a meeting. Good luck with your motor in or whatever it is. That was it. No encouragement. No belief. Just dismissal. Now, 6 years later, he was coming to stay at that motor inn. Except it wasn't a motor inn anymore. It was mine. Every brick, every floorboard, every success and failure belonged to me. Friday afternoon arrived with overcast skies and the smell of impending rain. At 2 o'clock, the first guests started checking in. Cousins I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. Uncle Raymond, who used to own a restaurant supply company. Aunt Helen, who'd always been kind but distant. They smiled at the front desk staff, complimented the lobby, talked about how nice the hotel was. None of them recognized me in my staff uniform. I kept my head down, processing reservations, handing out key cards, directing people to the elevators. David worked beside me, fielding questions, coordinating with housekeeping. We moved like a machine, efficient and invisible. At 4:30, a black Mercedes SUV pulled up to the entrance. My chest tightened. I watched through the glass doors as the valet opened the passenger side. Mom stepped out first, elegant as always in a cream cashmere sweater and tailored slacks. Dad followed, slower now than I remembered, using a cane I didn't know he needed. Behind them came Ethan and his family. He looked exactly like Dad, same build, same confident posture. His wife Grace held the hand of their youngest daughter while their twin boys ran ahead toward the doors. And finally, Miranda. She emerged from the driver's seat, phone pressed to her ear, already directing someone about something. Her husband David trailed behind with their luggage. They walked through the doors in a cluster of noise and motion, taking up space the way people do when they're used to being noticed. I turned slightly away, pretending to organize brochures on the desk. "Welcome to Grandview Plaza Hotel," David said warmly. "Checking in?" "Yes," Miranda said, ending her call. "Chen Family. We have a suite block reserved." "Absolutely. Let me pull that up." I kept my eyes down, focusing on my computer screen. My heart hammered so hard I was sure someone would hear it. "This place is gorgeous," Grace said, looking around the lobby. "Ethan, look at that chandelier." Ethan barely glanced up from his phone. "Nice." I tried to remember the last time I'd spoken to Ethan. Maybe 7 years ago? He'd called to ask if I could lend him money for a down payment on his practice. $20,000. I didn't have it then, but I offered what I could. $5,000. He'd laughed. "What am I supposed to do with $5,000, Marcus?" "Forget it." He never called again. While David processed their check-in, Mom approached the desk. She stood directly in front of me. I could smell her perfume, the same Chanel No. 5 she'd worn my entire childhood. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Could you tell me where the restrooms are?" I lifted my head slowly, keeping my expression neutral. "Down the hall to your left, ma'am. Just past the sitting area." "Thank you, dear." She walked away without a second glance. Dear. She'd called me dear. The check-in process took 20 minutes. I stayed busy nearby, never making eye contact, never drawing attention. When they finally headed toward the elevators, luggage carts in tow, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. David touched my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded. "Get ready. This is just the beginning." That evening, the family gathered in the ballroom for a welcome reception. I'd positioned myself in the back of the room, near the service entrance, wearing a catering uniform this time. Black vest, white shirt, bow tie. The catering manager, Sophia, had looked at me strangely when I'd asked to help serve, but she didn't question it. I was the boss. If I wanted to carry trays of champagne, that was my business. The ballroom looked spectacular. We'd strung cafe lights across the ceiling, set up high-top tables with white linens, arranged fresh flowers in low centerpieces. The bar glowed with backlit shelving, bottles arranged like art. A jazz trio played softly near the windows. Family members mingled, laughing, hugging, catching up. I moved through the crowd like a shadow, offering drinks, collecting empty glasses. People thanked me without seeing me. I was part of the scenery. Miranda stood near the center of the room, holding court with a group of cousins. She looked confident, successful, every inch the accomplished attorney. I'd read about her promotion last year. Made senior partner at 39. The firm had issued a press release. There was a photo of her shaking hands with the founding partners. I'd saved it, though I'm not sure why. Everyone, Miranda said, clinking a knife against her glass. Can I have your attention? The room quieted. The jazz trio lowered their volume. I just want to say how wonderful it is to see all of you here. Mom and Dad, this weekend is for you. 75 years young, Dad. We love you so much. Applause rippled through the room. Dad raised his glass, smiling that measured smile he'd perfected over decades of business dinners and charity events. Miranda continued. We've got an amazing weekend planned. Tomorrow's the big celebration dinner, and Sunday we'll do brunch before everyone heads out. But tonight, let's just enjoy being together. To family. To family, everyone echoed, raising their glasses. I stood near the back wall, holding a tray of empty champagne flutes, watching my family toast to a concept they'd never extended to me. Later, after the reception wound down and guests drifted off to their rooms, I helped Sophia's team break down the space. We stacked chairs, rolled up linens, cleared tables. My back ached. My feet hurt. I didn't care. Sophia noticed me wiping down a table and frowned. Marcus, what are you doing? Go home. We've got this. I'm good. Just want to make sure everything's perfect for tomorrow. She studied me with the kind of knowing look that comes from years of working hospitality. This family, she said quietly. They're your people, aren't they? I stopped wiping. Used to be. She nodded slowly. Whatever you're doing, be careful. Revenge has a way of costing more than you expect. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for recognition. She squeezed my shoulder. Sometimes those are the same thing. After the ballroom was clear, I walked through the empty hotel. It was past midnight. The lobby was quiet except for the night clerk at the desk and the soft hum of the HVAC system. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, letting my footsteps echo in the concrete stairwell. On the second floor, I paused outside my parents' suite. Light glowed beneath the door. I could hear muffled voices. Laughter. The sound of my mother's voice saying something I couldn't quite make out, followed by my father's lower rumble. I stood there for a long moment, hand resting on the wall. What was I doing? What did I think would happen at the end of this weekend? Would they suddenly see me? Apologize? Beg for forgiveness? No. That wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want their apology. I wanted them to understand what they'd done. To feel, even for a moment, the weight of being invisible to the people who should love you most. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, unlocked the door, and collapsed onto my couch without turning on the lights. The photograph of my grandmother sat on the side table, barely visible in the darkness. For the one who listens. I closed my eyes and let exhaustion pull me under. Saturday morning came with actual rain, the kind that turns Seattle gray and soft. I was up at 5, back in uniform, checking every detail. The ballroom set up for tonight's dinner. The flowers, ordered from a boutique shop in Capitol Hill. The menu, finalized with our executive chef. The wine, decanted and ready. Everything had to be flawless. At 9, I got a call from the front desk. Mr. Chen, there's a guest here asking about extended services. Says she wants to speak with a manager. I'll be right down. When I arrived, Miranda was waiting near the concierge desk, dressed in yoga clothes, hair pulled back, looking less polished than last night but somehow more herself. "Hi," she said when she saw me approach. "I'm Miranda Chen. Room 214. "I know. How can I help you, Ms. Chen?" "I wanted to ask about extending our stay. The reservation ends Sunday at noon, but I'm wondering if we could push checkout to Monday. Would that be possible?" I pulled up the booking system on the desk computer. "Let me check availability. We have several rooms booked for Sunday night. If we extend your suite block, I'll need to shuffle some reservations." "Is that a problem?" "Not at all. Just needs to be coordinated carefully." She leaned against the desk, studying me with the kind of direct gaze attorneys develop. "Have we met before? You look familiar." My pulse jumped. "I don't think so. I have one of those faces." She tilted her head slightly. "What's your name again?" "Marcus." "Marcus," she repeated, like she was testing the word. "Well, Marcus, I appreciate your flexibility. This weekend means a lot to my parents. I want everything to be perfect." "I understand. Family is important." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes. It is." After she left, David found me in the back office. "You're pushing it, boss." "She almost recognized you." "Almost isn't the same as actually." "What happens when she does?" "I don't know. But I'll deal with it when the time comes." The day moved forward in a blur of small tasks and careful orchestration. I personally inspected the ballroom 3 times. I reviewed the seating chart Miranda had submitted, noting the empty seat at the head table that didn't exist. I confirmed timing with the chef. I tested the sound system. At 4 o'clock, guests started getting ready. I could hear the sounds of preparation echoing through the halls. Showers running. Hairdryers humming. Children being told to stop running. By 6, the ballroom had transformed. Candles flickered on every table. The lighting was warm and golden. The jazz trio had been replaced by a string quartet. It looked like something from a magazine spread. Guests arrived in cocktail dresses and suits. They oohed and ahed. They took photos. They talked about how elegant everything was. I stood near the service entrance again, this time in a server's uniform. Black pants, white shirt, black vest. Invisible. My family entered together, a unit of success and satisfaction. Dad wore a navy suit. Mom, a burgundy dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Miranda and Ethan flanked them, picture-perfect children with picture-perfect families. Everyone found their seats. The first course was served. Butternut squash soup with truffle oil. The sommelier poured wine. Conversations bubbled up, a symphony of family catching up, reminiscing, laughing. I moved through the room with a tray of bread, offering rolls, butter, always moving, always invisible. Halfway through the second course, pan-seared salmon with asparagus, my father stood. He tapped his glass with a knife. The room fell silent. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he said, voice strong despite his age. "Patricia and I are so blessed to have all of you in our lives. Our children, our grandchildren, our extended family. Looking around this room, I see success. I see love. I see legacy." He paused, letting the words settle. "We didn't always have much. When Pat and I got married, we had nothing. But we built something. We built a family that takes care of each other. That lifts each other up. And I'm so proud of what we've become." Applause filled the room. People wiped tears. My mother reached up and squeezed my father's hand. I stood against the back wall, holding an empty tray, watching the man who told me I was chasing fantasies talk about family legacy. After dinner, there was cake. A massive 3-tier thing with gold leaf and fresh roses. Everyone sang happy birthday. Dad blew out candles shaped like the number 75. Cameras flashed. Grandchildren squealed. Then came the toasts. Ethan went first, talking about what an inspiration Dad was. How he taught him the value of hard work. How he showed him what it meant to be a man of integrity. Miranda went next. She talked about how Dad never missed a school event. How he believed in her when she wanted to pursue law. How he told her she could do anything. I listened to them rewrite history in real time, crafting a narrative that had no room for the son who didn't fit the story they wanted to tell. When the official program ended and people started mingling again, I slipped out of the ballroom. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to remember why I was doing this. I took the service elevator to the roof. We had a small terrace up there, nothing fancy, just a maintenance access area with a view. The rain had stopped, but the city was still wet, reflecting lights like scattered diamonds. I stood at the edge, hands gripping the railing, and let myself feel everything I had been holding back. The anger. The hurt. The bone-deep loneliness of being forgotten by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. My phone buzzed. A text from David, "You okay?" I typed back, "Fine. Just needed a minute." Another buzz, bills being tallied. We're at $46,200 so far. I stared at that number. $46,200. For a party I wasn't invited to. At a hotel I built from nothing. I texted back, "Keep tracking." Then I slipped my phone into my pocket and looked out at the city I'd made my home. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives. Having normal problems. Being seen by their families. I turned and headed back inside. The night wasn't over yet. And neither was I. By the time I returned to the ballroom, the party had shifted into its late-night phase. Older relatives had retreated to their rooms. The kids were getting tired and whiny. But the core group, my parents, Miranda, Ethan, and a handful of cousins, had moved to the bar area. They'd switched from wine to cocktails, from polite conversation to looser laughter. I resumed my position, clearing dessert plates, refilling water glasses, staying on the periphery. Marcus, Sophia appeared beside me. "You should go home. You've been on your feet for 14 hours. Just want to make sure everything's wrapped up properly." She gave me that look again, the one that said she understood more than I was saying. "Suit yourself. But don't blame me when your feet fall off." After she left, I found myself near the bar, restocking napkins, when I heard my name. Not a direct call, just a mention in passing. I froze. Whatever happened to Marcus? It was Aunt Helen, slightly drunk, swirling a martini. I haven't seen him in years. Miranda's response was casual, almost bored. "Oh, Marcus. I don't know. We lost touch." "Lost touch?" Ethan laughed. "That's generous. He fell off the map after he dropped out of law school." "He didn't drop out," my mother corrected gently. "He chose to leave." "Same difference," Ethan said. Dad was so disappointed. "We all were," Miranda added. "He had so much potential." Past tense. Had. Like I was dead. I kept my hands busy, folding napkins with mechanical precision, every word landing like a stone in my chest. "Do you think he's okay?" Aunt Helen asked. "I always liked Marcus. He was sweet." "I'm sure he's fine," Mom said. "He was always resourceful. Just not ambitious." There it was. The verdict. Resourceful but not ambitious. A consolation prize of an assessment. I finished restocking and walked away before I heard anything else. I didn't trust myself to stay silent. The party finally ended around midnight. Guests stumbled off to their rooms, thanking the staff, complimenting the venue. The ballroom emptied slowly, like a theater after a show. I helped the overnight crew with the final cleanup. We stacked chairs, broke down tables, vacuumed the floors. By 2 in the morning, the space looked neutral again. Ready for the next event. The next family. David found me sitting alone in the empty ballroom, lights dimmed, just me in the quiet. Final numbers, he said, handing me a printout. I looked at the total, $47,322. That's a lot of money, David said quietly. It's a lot of party. What are you going to do? I folded the paper and slipped it into my pocket. Exactly what they asked me to do. Bill them. Boss. What? This is going to blow up. I know. And you're okay with that? I looked around the empty ballroom, at the space I'd created, at the business I'd built against every expectation. I'm more than okay with it. He nodded slowly. Then I guess we'll deal with whatever comes next. After he left, I sat alone for a while longer. Tomorrow was Sunday. Brunch and checkout. And somewhere between mimosas and goodbye hugs, they'd see the bill. They'd realize what they'd spent. And maybe, just maybe, they'd realize who'd been serving them champagne all weekend. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photograph I'd saved from 6 years ago. My grandmother's house. The gap-toothed kid in the too big shirt. The woman in the background who saw me when no one else did. For the one who listens, I whispered to the empty room. Then I stood up, turned off the lights, and walked out, leaving the ballroom dark and ready for whatever morning would bring. Sunday morning arrived with thin sunlight breaking through the clouds. I woke at dawn, not because I'd slept well but because my body refused to let me rest any longer. The weight of what was coming pressed down on me like physical force. I showered, dressed in my usual staff uniform, and headed downstairs before most of the hotel had stirred. The kitchen was already alive with activity. Our chef, Antoine, was orchestrating brunch prep with the precision of a conductor. Eggs Benedict, smoked salmon platters, fresh pastries, fruit arrangements that looked like edible art. The Sunday brunch was part of the package Miranda had selected. Premium tier. Nothing but the best. I poured myself coffee from the staff pot and stood watching the controlled chaos of professional cooking. Antoine noticed me and raised an eyebrow. You look like hell, Marcus. Didn't sleep much. Big night last night. Those Chen people, they know how to party. He gestured toward a stack of empty wine bottles waiting to be recycled. Went through our entire Reserve Bordeaux selection. I sipped my coffee, saying nothing. You know them? Antoine asked, reading my silence the way good chefs read temperatures. I used to. He nodded and went back to his hollandaise sauce. Sophia had warned him, I realized. The staff knew something was brewing. They just didn't know what. The brunch was scheduled for 10 in the morning, set up in the smaller Pacific room rather than the grand ballroom. More intimate, Miranda had specified. Just immediate family for the final meal together. I'd arranged everything exactly as requested. Round tables with white linens. Fresh flowers. The morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Elliott Bay. At 9:30, I positioned myself near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. People were moving slower this morning, suffering from last night's indulgence. Aunt Helen appeared in sunglasses she didn't remove even indoors. Uncle Raymond complained about the firmness of his mattress. The cousins looked rumpled and tired. My parents arrived at 9:45. Dad moved carefully with his cane, Mom holding his arm. They both looked older in the morning light, less polished than they had last night. For a moment, just a flash, I felt something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the conversation I'd overheard. Resourceful but not ambitious. Good morning, I said, holding the door. Your table is ready whenever you'd like to be seated. Thank you, Mom said, that same distant politeness she'd shown all weekend. You've all been so wonderful. We aim to please. They moved past me into the room, and I watched them find their seats at the center table. The place of honor. Miranda and Ethan would join them soon, along with the grandchildren. One big happy family. Sophia approached carrying a leather folder. The bill, she said quietly. Do you want me to deliver it, or are you planning to do it yourself? I took the folder, feeling its weight. Who's the primary card on file? Miranda Chen Williams. Perfect. I'll handle it personally. Marcus. I know. She touched my arm gently. Whatever happens, we've got your back. The whole team. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that until she said it. Thank you. The brunch proceeded smoothly. Mimosas flowed. Plates of food emerged from the kitchen in waves. Children ran between tables while their parents half-heartedly told them to sit down. The string quartet played something light and cheerful. Everything was exactly as it should be. I circulated through the room, refilling coffee, clearing plates, asking if anyone needed anything. Still invisible. Still part of the furniture. Miranda barely glanced at me when I refilled her water glass. Ethan didn't look up from his phone when I removed his empty plate. Around 11, people started making motions about packing and checking out. The energy shifted from celebration to transition. Goodbye hugs began. Promises to do this again soon. Kids being wrangled toward the exit. I retreated to the lobby and waited behind the front desk. David stood beside me, silent but present. Through the windows, I could see families loading luggage into cars, valets rushing back and forth, the controlled chaos of mass checkout. At 11:30, Miranda approached the desk alone. She'd changed into travel clothes, jeans and a cashmere sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired but satisfied. "Hi," she said, setting down her key cards. "Room 214, checking out." "Of course, Ms. Chen. I hope everything met your expectations this weekend." It exceeded them. Seriously, this place is incredible. I'm definitely recommending it to colleagues. I'm glad to hear that. I pulled up her reservation, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. She had no idea what was about to happen. None of them did. "Let me just finalize your charges," I said, fingers moving across the keyboard. "Sure. It should all be on the card I provided when we booked." "That's correct. Let me just print out your statement." The printer hummed to life. 3 pages emerged, line by line, each one a record of every choice they'd made. Premium suite upgrades. Top shelf liquor. Upgraded wine selections. Private chef. Extended ballroom rental. Valet services. Spa treatments. Room service orders. Late-night bar tabs. I placed the pages in the leather folder and slid it across the desk. Miranda opened it casually, probably expecting to glance at a number and sign off. I watched her eyes scan the first page. Then stop. Then go back to the top. Her expression shifted from casual to confused to something approaching alarm. "This can't be right," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." She looked up at me, color draining from her face. "This total. It says $47,000. $47,322, I corrected gently. "Plus gratuity if you'd like to add it, though that's entirely at your discretion." Her mouth opened and closed. There must be a mistake. We were quoted $30,000 for the package. The base package was $30,000, yes. But you added quite a few upgrades throughout the weekend. The premium wine selection alone was an additional $6,200. The private chef service was $4,000. The extended ballroom hours, the upgraded suite block, the additional catering for Friday's reception that wasn't in the original plan. I didn't authorize all of this. I pulled out a second folder containing every email confirmation, every phone call note, every approved upgrade. "Everything is documented here, Ms. Chen. Each addition was confirmed either by you or your assistant Stephanie. Would you like to review the communications?" She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "I need to talk to my husband." "Of course. Take your time." She walked away fast, heels clicking on the marble floor. I watched her head toward the parking area where her family was loading vehicles. Through the windows, I saw her pull David aside. Saw her show him her phone. Saw his expression change from relaxed to tense. "This is it," David murmured beside me. "No going back now." Never was. 5 minutes later, Miranda returned with her husband and Ethan in tow. All three looked grim. "We need to speak with a manager," Ethan said, his voice carrying that automatic authority doctors develop. "I'm the manager on duty," I said calmly. "Someone above you. This bill is ridiculous. I can call the general manager if you'd like, but I am authorized to handle billing disputes." Miranda's husband David leaned down the counter. "Look, I'm sure there's been some kind of system error. Nobody spends $47,000 on a family party." I pulled up the itemized invoice on the screen and rotated the monitor toward them. "Your family did. Every charge is documented. Every upgrade was approved. If you'd like, I can go through it line by line." Ethan grabbed the printed statement. "This is predatory. You upsold us. Actually, you called multiple times requesting upgrades. Each time, we provided pricing and confirmed your approval before proceeding. We have those calls recorded for quality assurance purposes." Miranda's face had gone from pale to flushed. "My parents are elderly. They can't afford this. The card on file is yours, Miss Chen, not theirs." She looked at the statement again, hands trembling slightly. "I can't pay this. This is insane." "Unfortunately, the charges have already been processed. The card was authorized at check-in for incidentals and approved again last night when the balance exceeded the initial hold. You processed $47,000 without telling us? The authorization came through your bank, ma'am. If you'd like to dispute the charges, you're welcome to contact your credit card company, but from our end, all procedures were followed correctly." "This is theft," Ethan said, voice rising. "You're stealing from us." I kept my voice level. "I understand you're upset. Large bills can be surprising. But every single charge was incurred by your family and approved by the person who made the reservation. If you felt the costs were getting too high, you could have inquired about the running total at any point during the weekend." By now, other guests in the lobby had noticed the commotion. People pretended not to stare while obviously listening. Miranda noticed and lowered her voice. "We need to work something out. A payment plan or something. We don't typically offer payment plans for event services. However, if you'd like to apply for our commercial credit line, I can provide those forms." "This is unbelievable," David muttered. "I'm very sorry you're upset. Is there anything else I can help you with this morning?" The three of them exchanged looks. Some silent family communication I wasn't privy to. Then Ethan pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Dad." He stepped away, phone pressed to his ear. Miranda and her husband remained at the desk, both staring at the bill like it might change if they looked hard enough. Through the window, I saw my father emerge from a car, phone to his ear, face already red even from a distance. This was escalating exactly as I had known it would. Mom appeared behind him, confused and worried. Then more family members noticed the gathering storm. Aunt Helen. Uncle Raymond. Cousins I barely remembered. They all started moving toward the lobby like witnesses to an accident. My father burst through the entrance doors with more energy than I'd seen from him all weekend. He marched straight to the desk, Ethan trailing behind. "What the hell is going on here?" Dad demanded. "My son tells me you're trying to charge us $50,000. $47,322, I corrected. "And we're not trying to charge you. We already have. The card was processed this morning." His face went from red to purple. "That's highway robbery. It's itemized billing for services rendered. I want to see the owner. Right now." "The owner isn't available at the moment." Then the general manager. "Someone with actual authority." "I am the general manager." He slammed his hand on the desk. "Then whoever owns this place. I want to speak to them immediately." I felt something shift in my chest. This was the moment. The one I'd been moving toward all weekend. I looked at my father, really looked at him, and saw a man who'd spent his whole life getting his way through force of personality and righteous indignation. The owner is available, I said quietly. You're speaking to him. Silence dropped like a curtain. Dad's mouth opened. Miranda's eyes went wide. Ethan actually took a step backward. What? Miranda whispered. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a business card. Simple white stock, black lettering. I set it on the counter between us. Marcus Chen, owner and general manager, Grandview Plaza Hotel. The blood drained from my father's face. He picked up the card with shaking hands, stared at it, looked up at me, then down at the card again. Marcus? Mom's voice came from behind him, small and confused. The lobby had gone completely quiet. Every guest, every staff member, everyone stopped what they were doing to watch this unfold. I looked at each of them in turn. My father, who told me I was chasing fantasies. My mother, who said I wasn't ambitious. Miranda, who said she lost touch with me. Ethan, who laughed when I offered him $5,000. Hi, Mom, I said quietly. It's been a while. She moved forward slowly, like approaching a stranger. Marcus? This is your hotel? Built it from the ground up. Well, bought it as a wreck and rebuilt it. 5 years ago. Miranda found her voice. You've been here the whole weekend. I nodded. Checked you in Friday. Served you drinks at the reception. Cleared your plates last night. You called me dear when you asked where the bathroom was. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Oh my God. Why didn't you say anything? Miranda asked, anger creeping into her shock. You didn't invite me to the reunion, I said simply. I figured you didn't want me here as family. So I came as staff instead. Dad had been silent, processing. Now he spoke, voice tight. This is some kind of sick joke. No joke. Just business. You wanted a reunion. I provided the venue. You wanted everything perfect. I delivered. You just didn't know who was delivering it. Ethan stepped forward. So what, this is revenge? You lure us here and overcharge us? I didn't lure anyone. Your sister found this hotel through online reviews. She picked it because it had 5 stars in availability. And I didn't overcharge you. I charged you exactly what you asked for. Every upgrade, every addition, every bottle of wine. All approved. The bill, Miranda said weakly, is accurate. Every line item corresponds to a service your family requested and consumed. Dad's shock was crystallizing into rage. You did this deliberately. You knew we were coming and you set us up. I knew you were coming because I saw the reservation. You want to know what I thought when I saw it? I thought maybe, finally, after all these years, you remembered I existed. Maybe the reunion invitation got lost in the mail. Maybe you'd been trying to reach me. I paused, letting that sink in. But then I checked the group chat. 237 messages planning this weekend. Not one mentioned my name. You weren't trying to include me. You genuinely forgot I was alive. That's not fair, Mom said, tears starting. Isn't it? When's the last time any of you called me? Texted me? Asked how I was doing? When's the last time you even thought about me? No one answered. 6 years ago, I said, looking at Dad, I drove to Portland to tell you I was buying this property. You know what you told me? You asked when I was going to stop chasing fantasies. You were embarrassed that I dropped out of law school. I turned to Ethan. 7 years ago, you called asking for $20,000. I offered you 5. Everything I had at the time. You laughed at me. Said what was I supposed to do with 5,000? Then Miranda. For years ago, you stood in my apartment and told me I needed to accept that I wasn't special. That I was wasting everyone's time trying to make something of myself. Each accusation landed like a physical blow. I could see them trying to formulate defenses, excuses, recontextualizations. So here's what happened, I continued, voice steady. You decided to have a reunion. At the hotel I built. Without inviting me. And you had such a wonderful time celebrating your perfect family that you ran up a $47,000 bill. We didn't know, Miranda said desperately. That's the problem. You didn't know because you didn't care to know. I've been rebuilding my life for a decade. Building this business. Making something real. And not once did any of you stop to wonder what happened to me. Dad found his footing again. You're really going to make us pay this? You already paid it. The card was charged this morning. Whether you dispute it with your bank is up to you, but you'll lose that dispute. Everything was legitimate. This is extortion. This is business. You wanted a celebration. I provided one. You just didn't like the price. Aunt Helen had been listening from the edges. She stepped forward now, voice gentle. Marcus, sweetheart, we had no idea. I know. That's what hurts most. The fight seemed to drain out of Dad. He looked at the bill again, shoulders sagging. $47,000. We can't afford this. Then you shouldn't have spent it. What do you want from us? Mom asked through tears. An apology? We're sorry. We're sorry we lost touch. We're sorry we didn't think about you. Is that what you want to hear? I shook my head slowly. I don't want your apologies. Apologies don't mean anything when you don't understand what you're apologizing for. Then what? Miranda's voice cracked. What do you want? I want you to remember this feeling. This moment when you realize you forgot someone existed. When you realize your celebration came at someone else's expense. I want you to remember that the next time you're planning something and you don't think to include someone who should matter. The lobby was silent except for Mom's quiet crying. Your charges are settled, I said, slipping back into professional mode. Your checkout is complete. Valet will have your vehicles ready whenever you're prepared to depart. On behalf of Grandview Plaza Hotel, thank you for choosing us for your family reunion. The formality of it, the return to business language after everything that had just been said, seemed to break something in the room. David touched my arm. Boss, maybe we should take this somewhere private. No, I said quietly. They made me invisible in public all weekend. They can deal with visibility now. Marcus, please, Mom tried again. Let's talk about this properly. As a family. We're not family. We're customers and service provider. That's the relationship you chose when you didn't invite me. That got to her. She actually flinched. Miranda pulled out her phone, fingers shaking. I need to call the bank. Figure out if we can dispute this. You can try, I said. But you'll find every charge legitimate. I made sure of that. You plan this, Ethan said, accusation clear. I plan to protect myself. There's a difference. Aunt Helen approached me slowly, like I might bolt. Marcus, honey, I know this is complicated. But they're your family. This money, it's going to hurt them. It hurt me when they forgot I existed. It hurt me when they talked about me like I was a failure within earshot. It hurt me when they toasted the family legacy without wondering where I was. So yes, Aunt Helen, it hurts. That's the point. She stepped back, no argument left. My father straightened slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. The anger had drained away, replaced by something that looked like defeat. You've made your point, he said quietly. We failed you. You wanted us to know how that feels. Congratulations. We know. Do you? Or are you just embarrassed you got caught? He didn't answer. The grandchildren had been brought into the lobby by confused parents. They sensed the tension but didn't understand it. One of the twins tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Dad, what's wrong? Why is everyone upset? Ethan picked up his son automatically, that protective instinct you can't fake. Nothing, buddy. We're just saying goodbye. The little boy looked at me. Bye, server man. Thank you for the pancakes. Something twisted in my chest. You're welcome, kiddo. The family started moving toward the exits. Slowly, reluctantly, but moving. What else could they do? The weekend was over. The bill was paid. There was nothing left but to leave. Miranda paused at the door. She turned back, and for just a moment, I saw genuine regret in her eyes. I meant what I said, she said quietly. This place really is incredible. You built something amazing. I nodded once. I'm sorry we missed it. Missed you. Yeah. Me too. Then she was gone, following her family out into the gray Seattle morning. One by one, they all left. Loading cars. Navigating around each other in the parking lot. Probably already calling family members who hadn't attended, spreading the story of the disastrous reunion and the shocking bill and the son they'd forgotten who turned out to own the whole place. Within 20 minutes, the lobby was empty of Chens. Just regular guests going about their normal Sunday checkouts, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. I stood behind the desk, hands flat on the counter, breathing carefully. David appeared beside me with a glass of water. Drink this. I'm fine. No, you're not. But you will be. Drink. I took the glass, drank half of it, set it down. The team is talking about what happened. Let them talk. They're worried about you. They shouldn't be. Sophia came through from the restaurant, wiping her hands on her apron. That was the most insane thing I've ever seen in 20 years of hospitality. Thanks for having my back. Always. She studied my face. You feel better? Now that it's done? I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. The rest of the day passed in a strange fog. I went through the motions of management. Reviewed next week's bookings. Met with a couple interested in a wedding venue. Answered emails. Normal things. But my mind kept replaying moments from the weekend. The look on my mother's face when she realized who I was. The way my father's shoulders slumped. Miranda's quiet apology at the door. Around 5, I went up to my apartment. I didn't turn on the lights. Just sat on my couch in the gathering darkness, looking at the photograph of my grandmother. Did I do the right thing? I asked the empty room. No answer came. Not that I expected one. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it. Then curiosity won. Marcus, it's Aunt Helen. I got your number from the hotel website. I just wanted to say I'm glad I saw you this weekend, even if the circumstances were awful. You were always my favorite nephew. I'm sorry I didn't do more to stay in touch. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, thanks, Aunt Helen. That means more than you know. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, your grandmother would be proud of you. Not for the bill or the confrontation. But for building something real. For not giving up when they wrote you off. My eyes burned. I set the phone down before I could respond. Later that night, unable to sleep, I went back down to the hotel. The lobby was quiet, just the night clerk reading a book at the desk and the sound of the fountain near the entrance. I walked through the space, touching walls, straightening already straight chairs, checking that everything was as it should be. In the ballroom, I stood alone in the darkness. Last night it had been full of my family, celebrating without me. Now it was just empty space waiting for the next event. The next family who would make memories here. I thought about what Sophia had said. That revenge costs more than you expect. She was right. I'd gotten what I wanted. Recognition. Acknowledgement. Proof that I wasn't invisible or forgettable or irrelevant. But the cost was the final death of something I'd been holding on to. The hope that maybe, someday, they'd see me for who I actually was. Now they saw me. And the look in their eyes wasn't pride or respect. It was shock and hurt and something that might have been fear. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Miranda, We're getting the family together next week to figure out how to deal with this bill. Mom and Dad can't cover their share. We'll probably need to take out a loan. I hope you're satisfied. I read it 3 times. Started to reply. Deleted it. Started again. Finally I typed, the bill was legitimate. But if you want to discuss payment arrangements, have your attorney contact the hotel's business office. We can work something out. Her response came immediately, why would you do that? After everything? I thought about it. Because I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm trying to make you see me. 3 dots. Then nothing. She didn't respond. I pocketed my phone and walked out of the ballroom, turning off lights as I went. Tomorrow was Monday. A new week. New guests. New problems. Life moving forward whether I was ready or not. But as I climbed the stairs to my apartment, I couldn't shake the image of my father's face when he realized who I was. The shock, yes. The anger. But also something else. Something that might have been regret. I thought about texting him. Just once. Something simple. But what would I say? I'm sorry. I'm not. You deserve this. Maybe. But that felt small. In the end, I sent nothing. I crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the hotel settle around me. Pipes humming. Distant voices. The elevator chiming floors. This place was mine. That was real. The family I'd lost along the way. That was real too. Both things could be true at once. And somewhere in that contradiction, I'd have to figure out how to move forward. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. 3 weeks passed before I heard from them again. Not through lawyers or formal letters, just a single voicemail from my mother left at 2 in the morning. Her voice sounded small and tired in a way I'd never heard before. Marcus, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about what happened at the hotel. Your father won't talk about it. Miranda's stressed about the money. Ethan keeps saying we should just forget about you entirely. But I can't stop thinking about what you said. About us forgetting you existed. I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if you want me to try. But I needed you to know I'm thinking about you. I'm sorry, sweetheart. For all of it. I listened to that message 6 times before deleting it. Each time, I wanted to call her back. Each time, I reminded myself why I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The hotel continued operating as it always had. Events every weekend. Business travelers during the week. A food blogger featured us in an article about hidden culinary gems in Seattle. Our bookings increased another 15%. David mentioned we might need to hire additional staff for the holidays. Life moved forward. But something had shifted inside me that I couldn't quite name. One Thursday afternoon in late October, I was reviewing supplier contracts in my office when David knocked and entered without waiting for permission. That meant something was wrong. Your sister's in the lobby, he said. Wants to talk to you. I set down my pen. Did she say what about? No. But she's been sitting there for 20 minutes. Looks like she's building up courage. Tell her I'm busy. Boss. I don't want to see her. He crossed his arms, that stubborn look settling onto his face. You're going to have to deal with this eventually. Might as well be now. I wanted to argue. Instead, I stood and straightened my shirt. Fine. Conference room B. Give me 5 minutes, then send her in. He nodded and left. I walked to the small conference room we used for vendor meetings, poured myself water from the pitcher on the sideboard, and sat facing the door. My hands were steadier than I expected. Miranda entered exactly 5 minutes later. She looked different than she had at the reunion. Thinner. Tired. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of her usual polished style. She wore jeans and a sweater, no makeup I could detect. Thank you for seeing me, she said, hovering near the door. You have 15 minutes. I gestured to the chair across from me. She sat, placing her purse carefully on the floor beside her. I've been trying to figure out what to say for 3 weeks. Rehearsing it. But now that I'm here, none of it sounds right. Just say it. She took a breath. We sold Mom and Dad's house. I blinked. What? They can't afford the mortgage anymore. Not with their share of the hotel bill on top of everything else. So they're selling. Moving into a smaller condo. Ethan and I are splitting the difference to help them cover the costs, but it's still not enough. The words hit me differently than I expected. I'd known the bill would hurt them. I'd wanted it to hurt them. But hearing about actual consequences, tangible losses, made something twist uncomfortably in my chest. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know what your point cost. My point was that you forgot I existed. And now we'll never forget, will we? Her voice cracked slightly. Mission accomplished, Marcus. I drank my water slowly, buying time. Is that what you came here for? To make me feel guilty? She shook her head. I came because Mom's falling apart. She cries every night. Dad won't admit it, but I think he's ashamed. And me? I can't stop thinking about that moment in the lobby when I realized you'd been there the whole weekend. Serving us. Watching us. And we never saw you. Because you weren't looking. You're right. We weren't. She met my eyes directly. I wasn't. And I'm sorry for that. Truly sorry. The apology hung in the air between us. I thought I wanted to hear it. Now that I had, it felt hollow. Words without weight. What do you want from me, Miranda? I want to understand why you did it this way. If you were angry, if you felt abandoned, why didn't you just tell us? Why the elaborate setup? Would you have listened? She opened her mouth, then closed it. After a moment, she said quietly, probably not. That's why. We sat in silence. Outside the conference room window, I could see Elliott Bay stretching gray and vast under overcast skies. A ferry moved slowly toward Bainbridge Island, carrying people away from the city toward something else. The house they're selling, Miranda said softly, that's where we grew up. Where you grew up. All our memories are there. My memories there aren't good ones. Some of them were. Remember when Grandma May taught you to make dumplings in that kitchen? You must have been 10. You worked on them for hours, getting the pleats just right. I did remember. Standing on a stool beside my grandmother, her patient hands guiding mine. The steam rising from the pot. The pride I felt when she said mine looked almost as good as hers. That kitchen's going to belong to someone else now, Miranda continued. Those Sunday dinners. The Christmas mornings. Your old bedroom. All of it. My old bedroom was turned into an office the year after I moved out. Don't pretend you're losing something sacred. She flinched. You're right. We erased you before you ever left. At least you're finally honest about it. She pulled a folder from her purse and placed it on the table between us. These are the financial details. What the bill did to them. What they're losing. I thought you should see the full picture. I didn't touch the folder. I already know the full picture. I designed it. Her jaw tightened. You really don't feel anything about this? I feel plenty. I just don't feel guilty. Mom wants to see you. Talk to you properly. She knows where I am. She's afraid you'll refuse. Then she understands how I've felt for years. Miranda stood abruptly. I came here trying to build a bridge, Marcus. Trying to take responsibility. But you're so locked into your anger that you can't see past it. My anger is justified. Maybe it is. But at what point does justified anger become just cruelty? The question landed harder than I wanted to admit. I watched her gather her purse, preparing to leave. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, she said quietly, Grandma May would have been proud of what you built here. This hotel. Your life. Everything you accomplished despite us. Don't, I said sharply. Don't what? Don't use her to manipulate me. You have no idea what she would have thought. You're right. I don't. Because I never really knew her the way you did. She loved you best. We all knew it. Maybe that's part of why we resented you. The admission shocked us both. Miranda looked as surprised as I felt that she'd said it out loud. I should go, she said quickly. After she left, I sat alone in the conference room for a long time. The folder remained on the table, unopened. Eventually, David knocked softly and entered. You okay? No. Want to talk about it? I shook my head. He sat down across from me anyway. The thing about winning, he said after a moment, is that sometimes it doesn't feel like you thought it would. I'm not trying to win. Aren't you? I looked at him. What would you have done? If your family forgot about you, excluded you, talked about you like you were nothing? I don't know, he said honestly. But I do know that hurt people hurt people. And you've been hurt. The question is whether you want to keep hurting them back or find some other way forward. There is no other way forward. There's always another way. You just have to want to find it. After he left, I finally opened Miranda's folder. Financial statements. Mortgage documents. Sale listings. She hadn't been lying or exaggerating. My parents were losing their home. The place they'd lived for 40 years. And my bill was the breaking point that made it necessary. I closed the folder and pushed it away. Then pulled it back. Then pushed it away again. That night, I couldn't focus on anything. I tried watching television, gave up after 10 minutes. Tried reading, couldn't absorb a single sentence. Finally, I put on my coat and walked down to the waterfront. The November air was sharp and cold, cutting through my layers. I walked until my face went numb, until my thoughts slowed down enough to hear myself think. When I got back to the hotel around midnight, there was a car parked in front. My father's car. He sat in the driver's seat, engine off, just waiting. I approached slowly. He saw me coming and got out, moving carefully with his cane. I was starting to think you weren't coming back, he said. I go for walks sometimes. Can we talk? I almost said no. Instead, I unlocked the front entrance and held the door. The lobby was empty except for the night clerk, who nodded at me and discreetly moved to the back office. My father and I sat in the two wingback chairs near the fireplace. The gas flames flickered between us, casting shadows that made us both look older than we were. Your sister told you about the house, he said. Yes. I wanted you to hear it from me too. We're selling. Should close next month. I'm sorry. He laughed, a bitter sound. Are you? I don't know. He nodded slowly. That's fair. When Miranda told me you owned this place, my first thought wasn't pride or happiness for you. It was anger. Anger that you'd set us up. That you'd humiliated us. That you'd made us look like fools in front of our family. That was the point. I know. And you succeeded. He stared into the fire. But then I couldn't sleep for days. I kept thinking about that meeting we had 6 years ago. The diner in Portland. Do you remember? Every word. I told you to stop chasing fantasies. Called your hotel dream foolish. I've replayed that conversation 100 times since the reunion. And I finally understood what I couldn't see then. What's that? I was wrong. You weren't chasing a fantasy. You were chasing the only thing you had left after we pushed you away. His voice cracked on the last word. I sat very still, not trusting myself to respond. Your mother and I, we had our lives planned out, he continued. Miranda would be the lawyer. Ethan the doctor. You were supposed to be the lawyer too, carry on that legacy. When you left school, I took it as a personal failure. Like I'd raised a quitter. I'm not a quitter. No. You're not. You're the only one of my children who built something from nothing. Miranda inherited her firm position. Ethan bought into an established practice. But you? You took a dying motor inn and turned it into this. He gestured around the elegant lobby. And I couldn't even see it, he said quietly. Couldn't see you. I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to prove yourself this way. The apology was everything I'd wanted to hear for years. So why did it feel insufficient now? Selling the house won't solve everything, I said. The bill is still the bill. I know. We'll figure it out. Take out loans. Work payment plans. Your mother wants to get a part-time job, though I hate the idea of her doing that at 73. You could dispute the charges. He shook his head. Everything was legitimate. You made sure of that. Besides, we earned this debt. We spent that money. We have to own it. We sat in silence, watching the fire. Finally, my father spoke again. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. When you were standing behind that desk, watching us all weekend, what were you hoping would happen? I thought about that question carefully. Honestly, I wanted you to see me. Really see me. Not as the son who disappointed you or the brother who didn't measure up. Just as someone who existed and mattered. And now that we do see you? Now I don't know what comes next. He nodded slowly. Neither do I. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we figure it out together. I wanted to believe him. Part of me desperately wanted to believe that this conversation could fix years of neglect and dismissal. But another part, the part that had been protecting me all this time, knew it wasn't that simple. I'll think about it, I said finally. That's all I'm asking. He stood carefully, leaning on his cane. The movement reminded me how much older he'd gotten. How much time had already passed. The hotel really is remarkable, he said, looking around once more. You should be proud. I am. Your grandmother would have loved it. I think she would have loved that I didn't give up when everyone else told me to. He absorbed that with a slow nod. Then he walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back. I'm not asking you to forgive us. I don't know if that's possible. But I am asking you to consider letting us try to know you. The real you. Not who we wanted you to be. After he left, I sat by the fire until the night clerk gently asked if I needed anything. I shook my head and went upstairs to my apartment. The photograph of my grandmother was exactly where I'd left it. I picked it up and studied her face in the background of that old family photo. For the one who listens. I'd listened all my life. To their criticisms. Their disappointments. Their expectations. And in doing so, I'd lost my own voice. The reunion, the bill, the confrontation, all of it had been about making them listen to me for once. But now that they were listening, I didn't know what to say. Over the next few weeks, things shifted in ways I didn't expect. Miranda called once to ask about hotel recommendations for a client. We talked for 5 minutes about business. Nothing personal. But it was something. Ethan sent a brief email acknowledging he'd been wrong about the $5,000. He didn't apologize exactly, just stated the fact and left it there. My mother sent cards. Not long letters or emotional appeals. Just simple cards that said thinking of you or hope you're well. I didn't respond, but I kept them. Then one day in early December, I received a package. No return address, but the handwriting on the label was my father's. Inside was a small wooden box, the kind used for jewelry or keepsakes. I opened it carefully. Sitting on a bed of tissue paper was my grandmother's jade bracelet. The one she wore every day of her life. The one I thought had been buried with her. Beneath it was a note in my father's hand. She left this for you. We kept it, thinking you'd come back for it. When you didn't, we put it away and forgot. You should have it now. It was always meant to be yours. I held that bracelet in my hands and cried for the first time since the reunion. Not angry tears or bitter ones. Just grief for all the time we'd lost, all the words we'd never said, all the moments that could have been different if we'd just tried harder to see each other. The hotel Christmas party was scheduled for mid-December. Every year, we invited staff and their families for an evening of food, music, and gratitude. This year felt different. As I stood watching my team laugh and celebrate, watching David's kids chase each other around the lobby, watching Sophia dance with her husband, I realized something. I'd built a family here. Not the one I was born into, but the one I'd chosen. These people saw me. Valued me. Chose to be part of my life every day. And maybe that was enough. Maybe it had to be. On Christmas Eve, I was closing up the office when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Marcus. It was my mother. I know you're probably busy. I just wanted to wish you Merry Christmas. Thanks. You too. Silence. Then, we're having dinner tomorrow. Just the immediate family. Small and quiet. If you wanted to come, there'd be a place for you. No pressure. No expectations. Just dinner. I stared out my office window at the city lights reflecting off the water. Every instinct I'd developed over the years told me to say no. To protect myself. To maintain the distance that had kept me safe. But another voice, quieter but persistent, reminded me of what David had said. There's always another way forward. You just have to want to find it. What time? I asked. 2 o'clock. We're at the new condo now. I'll text you the address. Okay. Marcus? Her voice wavered. Thank you. I haven't said yes yet. But you didn't say no. That's something. Christmas Day arrived gray and drizzling, typical Seattle weather. I changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater. Nothing too formal. Nothing that looked like I was trying too hard. At 1:30, I got in my truck and drove south toward their new place. The condo was in a modest complex near Renton. Nothing like the house I grew up in. Smaller. Simpler. The kind of place people downsize to when they're being practical. I sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, trying to decide if I could actually do this. Finally, I got out and walked to the door. Before I could knock, it opened. My mother stood there, older and smaller than I remembered, wearing an apron covered in flour. You came, she whispered. I'm here. That's all I can promise. That's enough. Inside, the condo was sparsely furnished. Moving boxes still lined the walls. The Christmas tree was small, maybe 4 feet tall, decorated with ornaments I recognized from my childhood. Miranda was setting the table. Ethan was helping Dad in the kitchen. Everyone stopped when I entered. Hey, Ethan said awkwardly. Hi. The dinner was strange and stilted at first. We passed dishes in careful silence. Made small talk about weather and traffic. Avoided anything real or substantial. But slowly, gradually, the conversation began to thaw. Miranda mentioned a case she was working on. I found myself asking questions. Ethan talked about his daughter's school play. I almost smiled at his description of their terrible singing. By dessert, something had shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but different. We were 5 people sitting around a table, trying. As I was leaving, my father walked me to the door. Thank you for coming. Don't expect this to be regular. I won't. But I hope it can be sometimes. I nodded and stepped out into the damp evening. Behind me, through the window, I could see my family cleaning up, moving around each other in practiced rhythms. They looked smaller than I remembered. More human. Less like the giants who'd once had the power to make me feel invisible. Driving back to the hotel, I thought about what Grandma May used to tell me. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose to show up. For years, my birth family hadn't shown up for me. But now they were trying. Awkwardly, imperfectly, but trying. And maybe that deserves something from me too. Not forgiveness, not yet. Maybe never fully. But acknowledgement. Space for something new to grow where the old resentment had been. When I got back, David was in the lobby dealing with a late check-in issue. He looked up when I entered. "How was it?" "Complicated. But I survived." He grinned. "That's progress." That night, I stood in my apartment looking at the photograph of my grandmother one last time. Tomorrow I'd put it away, not to forget her, but because I didn't need it as a reminder anymore. I knew who I was now. Not defined by their absence or their approval. Just me, Marcus Chen, who'd built something real from nothing because someone once told him he could. The hotel hummed quietly around me. My staff. My business. My life. And now, maybe, a fragile thread connecting me back to the family I thought I'd lost forever. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when I saw their reservation 3 months ago. But it was the one I had. And that would have to be enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.